kind of tough to be thinking about the Bucks in the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, the season's over with. I mean, let's just be real here. The playoffs, not going to happen. They have a less than 1% chance. We'll explain that. But, you know, it's never too early to start thinking of the NFL draft, Jameson. Where were the Bucks picked, though, if the draft started today? We'll tell you. And an emotional night for Lightning forward Pat Maroon. The St. Louis kid gets his Stanley Cup ring. But would his former club spoil his night? Stick and Stay Sports is next. Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. Big test for the Lightning in St. Louis. Bolts taking on the defending Stanley Cup champs Blues. And some thought the Blues would be dealing with that Cup hangover this season. Well, the direct opposite has happened. Blues not only lead the Central Division, they're also in a three-way tie for the second most points in the entire NHL. 29 games, 21 points. Lightning entering tonight with 20 points in 17 games. That's good for sixth place in the Atlantic. Ouch. Incredible moment here prior to puck drop. Lightning winger Pat Maroon getting a standing ovation there in St. Louis and getting his Stanley Cup ring. He grew up in St. Louis, played one season with the Blues last season, and of course helped them win the Cup. Awesome moment there for the hometown kid. Hey, we're scoreless here in the first. Alex Killorn along the boards. Quick feed to Anthony Cirelli. He goes 5-hole on Jordan Bennington. Lightning strike first, 1-zip on Cirelli's power play goal. Now, Nikita Kucherov left the game late in the second after getting checked hard, and that took the wind out of Kuch and out of the Lightning sails. Same score in the second. David Perron picks up the loose change and fires it in for the equalizer. We're tied at 1. Perron getting behind Victor Hedman and Andre Palat to beat Andre Vasilevsky's glove slide. So we're now tied at 1 in the third. Blues controlling the puck. Watch this back, behind the back no-look pass there by Robert Thomas. Oscar Sundqvist takes advantage of the beautiful assist, and he lights the lamp. Blues take the lead and win 3-1. Vasi never even saw the puck, screened by his own man. Lightning getting outshot 34-18. The fresh, up-to-date college football playoff rankings coming out tonight. LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia, your top 4 teams. So no change there in the top 4 from last week, or really in the top 7. However, we did see a change in the rest of the rankings, especially in the top 10. Alabama now without Tua Tagovailoa ranked 5th for now. Oregon 6, Utah 7, and still no change. Penn State and Oklahoma move up 1 spot, while Minnesota drops 2 slots to number 10. And for the second consecutive week, the Florida Gators coming in at number 11. Gators are the highest ranked 2-loss team in this week's rankings. Florida is on a bye week this Saturday. Then, of course, it's home to Florida State on the 30th. And the Buccaneers have a less than 1% chance of making the postseason, according to 538.com. Hard to even think of the postseason for this team when they're sporting a 3-7 record with 6 games remaining. But that still hasn't changed the Bucs' final approach in this stretch run.
Win them all. You can't win them all till you win one. And, you know, division on the road and a team that's similar to us. They're playing really well right now and kind of have found their stride after the open date. And a lot of changes coaching staff-wise, but they're playing with a lot of energy, and it's showing on tape.
And with the postseason not in the Buccaneers' cards, it's never too early to look forward to next spring's NFL draft. And if the season ended today, the Bucs would pick 6th. This order will obviously change since there are 6 weeks left in the season. The problem, though, for the Bucs, if they want to draft a quarterback, they'll likely not get one of the top ones at 6. And with the Bucs' easy remaining schedule, there's a better chance they could fall out of the top 10. Stay with us. We're back after this final timeout.
Baseball's not a big sport, it seems, here in Florida, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't think so with all the history of spring training. But, you know, no secret that there's been problems supporting 2 baseball teams. Well, guess what? We know that in Miami. We know that here in the Bay Area. But that's not stopping former Orlando Magic owner Pat Williams. He wants to bring an expansion team to Orlando. Does this impact the Rays' current stadium issues? And could this plan actually work? Stick and Stay Sports is next. I love the old saying, hard to make any big impact with a baseball club when you spend most of your time in the tub. Injuries derailed Matt Duffy's time with the Rays since getting traded here in 2016. And the team has seen enough. The Rays designating Duffy for assignment tonight. The career .282 hitter spent significant amount of time on the injured list over the last 4 seasons, including playing in only 46 games this past season. A great guy who just couldn't stay healthy. A frustrating end to Duffy's Rays career. You know what's even more annoying? The Rays stadium saga. We all scoffed and laughed at Sue Sternberg's joint city plan with Montreal when he announced it in June. A plan that, in my opinion, won't work. I said it back then, and I still stand by it. The Rays stadium in Montreal drama brings me to this boring, ugly logo for a potential expansion team in Orlando. Looks like someone designed this in a Windows 98. Well, the Orlando Dreamers could be an expansion team or a team that's relocated to O-Town in the future. Here's what we know. Former Orlando Magic owner Pat Williams is spearheading this campaign. He unveiled his plan today, this Little League type logo, and more importantly, why he thinks baseball will actually work in Orlando. He's instrumental, remember, bringing the Magic to Orlando in the late 80s, but this is a completely different beast. He has no interest in the Rays, that's good, and what he calls that Montreal idea a, quote, radical plan, and he's right. Williams feels with Orlando growing by the thousands a month could draw more than 3 million fans a year. The Marlins and Rays drew a combined 1.9 million last season. That fact is a big reason why Pat Williams is confident baseball in Orlando will have more success than the Rays and Marlins.
Nothing against St. Pete, nothing against Miami. They have worked and they've tried. It hasn't worked for them. But I'm just saying that Orlando is a different market. It is just special market. It's a special market. I'm convinced it could be one of the best baseball franchises in the country.
And many people think the Bay Area is a special baseball market, too. While Orlando is growing, I'm not sure they'll be able to draw 3 million fans a season. I don't think their record of 75 million tourists in 2018 would want to go to a baseball game. The Orlando Magic get decent crowds, but not enough to drool over. Tourists come to Orlando to go to amusement parks, not baseball. Locals clearly love the Magic and UCF and their pro soccer teams and probably would love baseball. But if it hasn't worked in Miami or in St. Pete, why will it work in Orlando? Remember the Rays played a 3-game regular season series at Disney in 2007 and drew an average announced crowd of more than 8,900 people. Rays tried it again in 2008 and again drew 8,900 fans. These weren't sellouts. Capacity for Disney's Wild World of Sports expanded by 2,000 seats to reach more than 11,000, and yet they still didn't sell out. Williams said his plan would probably take 6 years to finish, if it finishes at all. Major League Baseball isn't ready for expansion. Commissioner Rod Manfred said the league won't expand until the stadium issues across the bay in St. Pete and in Oakland are resolved. And so far, they're not. The Rays will stay at the Trop for another 8 years. And while a stadium issue could very well be resolved before that, MLB is still going to wait before expanding. So for now, the Orlando Dreamers may only be just a dream. Stay with us. We're back after this timeout.
And the Buccaneers fall to the Saints 34-17. Coming up next in sports, we'll recap what went wrong and an injury update to Jameis Winston. Sports is coming up.
Now, the ABC Action News Sunday Sports Desk.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by live here at Raymond James Stadium. Buccaneers reeling today, 34-17, falling there to the New Orleans Saints. And, you know, it's safe to say it's beyond frustrating to be a Buccaneers fan, let alone it hasn't been more than 10 years for this team to go to the postseason. Let's just think about what's happened week in and week out with this club. We just don't know which team is going to go ahead and show up. A team that's going to win or a team that's going to lose. They came off a great win last week against the Cardinals, and then today a clunker. So what went wrong? Let's first start with the biggest issue for the Buccaneers. And if I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry. You'll have to agree, because the biggest issue has to be the guy under center, Jameis Winston. He threw 4 interceptions this afternoon. Granted, the first one to O.J. Howard in the first quarter wasn't his fault. Howard simply didn't have control of the ball. His last 3 were all on Jameis, overthrowing receivers, rushing his throws. His second pick came before the halftime. The third pick was a pick 6 in the fourth quarter, all but sealing the New Orleans win. And then the last one occurring in the end zone in the fourth quarter. That just can't happen. Time for a change at quarterback. And when I mean change, I mean this offseason. Another big problem for the Bucs, the play of their offensive line. They didn't do any favors for Jameis Winston. They got outworked by the Saints D-line, allowing 2 sacks. The pocket kept collapsing almost every time Winston dropped back to pass. That caused him to rush his throws and, in turn, forcing so many passes and those turnovers. Now, I asked center Ryan Jensen why the struggles. He said they expected that type of play from the Saints, but they simply just have to play better. Finally, the Bucs defense got outplayed by the Saints. Too much Drew Brees and company. Bruce Arians knows what Drew Brees can do. He just hoped and prayed his defense could cause havoc for the future Hall of Fame quarterback. That, though, didn't happen. And that right there is the big reason why the Bucs lost. You can't win games when you turn the ball over 4 times and play from behind the entire game.
It stinks. We turn the ball over, and you know, it's not all on the quarterback for sure. And you know, it seems like it's kind of gone that way all year. It's just kind of weird, fluky things happen.
It's very frustrating. We got the players. It's never been about the players since I've been here. It's just we've been very, very inconsistent since I've been here. And I don't know what we got to do to overturn it, but we got to do something because this feeling is awful.
Is it a concern that these errors are still occurring this late in the season?
Absolutely. Yeah, they are. Like I said, the play I have myself, it's just, you know, it's plays that we got to eliminate. It's like just dumb mistakes on us.
All right, so Jameis Winston sprained his ankle late in the game, and Bruce Arians was actually going to go with Ryan Griffin, but Winston convinced him to stay in the game. Arians admitting, though, in retrospect, he probably should have went with Ryan Griffin anyways. In the end, Bucs still lose 34-17. They head to Atlanta next week. More on the Bucs loss and reaction from Winston and Arians tonight at 11. Until then, more Action News returns right after this timeout.